yeah, got it all the time. Nickelodeon, yeah, where I got that slide.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a panel wrap custom. So first things first, here's everything that you need. I have everything laid out right here. So of course, you're going to need your sneakers that you plan on customizing. And in this one, we're going to use essentially fabrics to cut out panels using tape and glue to then transform each panel into a fabric. So at the end of this, you'll see how it comes out. It's definitely a really cool technique, and it's a super easy custom to make. That's why I like doing fabric customs. You don't need that much materials, and with the fabric, you can buy it in bulk. So if you plan to do a couple fabric customs, it becomes relatively cheap over time, but you definitely don't want to waste the fabric. You're going to need your fabric. You're definitely going to want some tape. So I'll be using Scotch painter's tape for this fabric custom. Most tape will work. You're definitely going to want to have a box cutter. I also have an X-Acto knife. So, the reason why I have two different cutting tools is just for certain parts of the fabric in the sneaker. You're going to want to use different things to cut it out, depending on how intricate or tight into the creases you need to get. For this custom, I'll be using this Polo Ralph Lauren Bear fabric. It's super cool. Let me show you that real quick. And then I'm also going to be using this almost denim fabric that has this cool little pattern in it with colors behind it. You're definitely going to need some contact cement glue. So in this clip, I'm going to use Renia Aquilium 315. A lot of people use barge cement. I prefer using Renia just because I think it has a much less pungent smell than barge cement, so I just prefer working with this, but you can use either or, and most contact cements that can bond with leather are usable. And with the glue, you can use a paintbrush to apply it. Personally, I like using Q-tips to, spread the glue onto the sneaker. And the real reason I like using Q-tips is because if you use a paintbrush, you have to basically throw it away after. I don't want to waste or throw away some of my good paintbrushes. So, I can easily throw away the Q-tips after I'm done using it. It works just as great to apply the glue onto the sneaker, so I would actually recommend that. You're definitely going to want to have a pair of scissors. I'm using, a big pair of scissors, and I also have a small one. Like I said, there are certain moments where, to cut out certain shapes, you are going to need to get pretty close to the edges, and to make everything look super exact, you definitely want to also have a smaller scissor. You might want to have gloves when you're working with the glue, and one thing that I recommend, it's optional, you don't need this, is having a heat gun. So I'll use the heat gun to activate the glue and help it dry quicker. I definitely find that bonding the fabric to the sneaker goes a lot smoother when I'm using a heat gun, so I'll show you the process of that later on. One more thing to mention, you also want to prep the shoe a little bit beforehand. So I'm going to use Angelus leather deglazer and some cotton pads to just scrub the shoe a little bit. You don't have to do that thorough of a prepping job, since we're doing a fabric custom. If we were painting the shoes, you would want to do a very thorough job with the acetone and cotton pads, but since we're doing a fabric custom, you just want to go over it, a couple smooth passes. Let's jump straight into it. Every custom starts out by doing the prep work. In this video, I started by removing the laces. Use acetone or deglazer to scrub the shoe a few times on each panel. This will allow the fabric to bond better to the sneaker. If you're working with a thick fabric, you might want to sand the panels a little bit as well. After the prep work, start taping off each panel you want to put the fabric on. Once you have the entire panel edge covered in tape, trace your fingers around the edges to crease the tape along the edge of each panel. Each panel should create a strong outline on the tape. Go along the edges of each panel with your X-Acto knife or box cutter. Be gentle with the knife, you don't want to cut into the sneaker. It's super easy to cut into the sneaker here, so taking your time is 100% worth it. Peel the outline tape and place it onto the fabric. I try to maximize my fabric and place each piece close together on the fabric. This is where you decide which part of the fabric you want to be on the sneaker, so you should take your time with this as well and be a little bit meticulous. Cut the panel out. I would leave 1 to 2 millimeters of space around the outline that can then be tucked into the panel edges of the sneaker. You just want to make sure that you're cutting a big enough piece around each panel so that it fits onto the sneaker panel perfectly. I make it easier by cutting each piece out loosely first and then cutting precisely along the outline edges, leaving that 1 to 2 millimeters of space. Label each panel left or right for the sneakers. Trust me, this will save you any headaches down the line. I apply glue on both the back of the fabric piece and the panel I'm placing the fabric on individually. This helps with bonding. Cover the entire panel of both with the glue and firmly place them together. Remove any excess glue with a Q-tip. You need to hold the fabric on the sneaker for about 30 seconds to put it in place. Once you think the glue is finally starting to hold, hit it with the heat gun for 15 to 20 seconds. Hold the fabric down and adjust it if it's not on the panel correctly. You'll start to feel it bond and know that it's working. Really spread the fabric onto the entirety of the panel. Make sure it's flush and looks as close to factory as possible. Get rid of every single wrinkle. The toe box is a difficult spot, so don't worry if the fabric isn't holding down immediately. You'll definitely need to do a second round of glue and hit spots and corners that didn't bond well originally. Repeat this exact same process for every single panel that you want to put a bit of fabric onto. You may have some spots that you need to go back later to hit with small pieces of fabric if they weren't covered correctly. You may also have spots with too much fabric which you can cut with a small scissor or a box cutter. So just keep those two things in mind. Remember, anyone can glue fabric to a shoe, but making it look like it came out of the box that way, that's the craft here. To put a fabric piece behind the swoosh, you need to use an X-Acto knife to cut the threading under the swoosh. Be extremely careful not to cut the swoosh. Going slow here is the play. Better safe than sorry, always. Remove as much of the threading as you can with your fingers and a pair of tweezers. Hold the swoosh out of the way and do the tape, outline trace, fabric cut, and glue method I walked you through before. Remove all the tape from the panels to reveal your work so far. Take note of the spots you need to go back and fix. Use a knife or a weeding tool like I am in this clip to put shoelace holes into the fabric. Line up the tool with the imprint of the shoelace hole on the sneaker. An electric screwdriver also works super nicely here. I'll use that later for touch-ups. Now that the fabric is taken care of, you can stop here or add any finishing touches to the sneaker. You know I had to add one more finishing detail to take this pair to the next level. Complete the sneaker with the OG laces or another pair of laces of your choice. And without further ado, here's the final reveal.